Lesson 2, Stalls and Airspeeds. The last time we practiced, we climbed to 3,500 feet, or even 4,500 feet heading north. Now we need to get to the practice area so we can try upper level air work. This is common with every single lesson from day one in most training programs. But you'll notice that we fly out from Toronto Airport, we head east towards Bluffers Park, and then we head north towards the practice area. All that time in the airplane is costing us money just to get to the practice area. Some of you may want to just take off from the runway and head out over the water and start practicing. In real life, we don't do that because what if you have troubles and you need to do a forced landing, and now we're landing in water, or we're landing where there's people, so we get out of the area, all right? In the smaller airstrips, they might have a local farmer's field nearby very quick to get there. And so that would be a better way to do it. So we want to be in an area that's not over built up areas, and we want to be in a high enough area so that we have a safeguard altitude if we have troubles. At higher altitudes, we can see a better picture below of the landmarks to help with navigation. We're looking for a town called Claremont. See it here on my map? You should have downloaded this map already and can refer to it. This is a simple pilotage in VFR, where we use the expression map to ground to watch, and we use other variations of that, but meaning that we look at the map to find landmarks such as lakes and railroad tracks. Then we look out the window to see if we can locate those landmarks. Then we look at our watch. Well, we could tell by how long it's taken, and we can start predicting how long it will take to get there, right? So we'll use that later in checking and predicting our ETA. But for now, so let me demonstrate flying north and finding Claremont. This is a designated practice area for pilots for upper level air work. There are 4 quadrants centered around Claremont. We pick a quadrant where there are no planes, and we'll practice there because we're going to be at different altitudes. We usually listen and call to announce our intentions. We'll learn more about that in the radio module. Let's pick the upper right quadrant, and we should be there at 4,500 feet when we get there. All right, so we can plan for that. Once we arrive, we need to check the area to ensure there are no other planes nearby, and we are high enough from the ground while we are training. We call this sequence of checks HASEL, H-A-S-E-L. Height, area, security, engine, and lookout. You'll memorize this. You'll do this every time when you're practicing. Height, ensure we are high enough to recover from any altitude loss while learning. We can also establish with your instructor and ground zero altitude. Many of us use 2,000 feet. We'll pretend that's the ground. That means if your altimeter falls below 2,000 feet, you have crashed. It's a safe way to practice. We can climb to any altitude, but let's pick 5,500 feet to start with a 2,000-foot ground zero. All right, so our height's taken care of. Area. Are we over cities, towns, or villages? Well, we shouldn't be. It's scary for people to watch us do stalls and spins, and they'll call the police even. And if we have serious troubles, we won't hurt anybody else, but that won't happen. Well, for safety's sake, we practice over country fields. If anything happens to our plane, we can glide it down to the field and land there. And we will practice that in the intermediate class, emergency landings in farmers' fields. Security. Secure people and objects in the cockpit. Your instructor will reach for your own seatbelt to ensure it's good and move any loose objects like flight bags, first aid kits, etc. We are going to stall our plane and do drastic recoveries. We can't have things moving around inside the cockpit. The next one in the HASEL check is the E for engine. Look at your engine instruments to ensure they're all in the green. Also check your fuel quantity and check that they are on both fuel tanks. Ensure your mixture is rich. We're not trying to conserve fuel here. We want to keep that engine running. Lookout. Now we execute a 360-degree turn. Or we could even turn to the left for 90 degrees and turn to the right for 90 degrees. This will get better with the next lesson. But so for now, a gentle turn. I mean, we haven't learned turns well enough yet. So do a gentle turn and look left and right with your hat switch. One views the sky, the other views the ground. We want to ensure there's no other traffic. All right? Okay, now we're ready to understand airspeeds. We've done our HASEL check. We've already learned that if we point the nose up from level, the airspeed will drop. If not corrected, at some point it will drop below the stall speed and the plane will stop flying. As a simple demonstration of this, we would just simply use the model plane again. We could point it straight up, but eventually that engine just can't keep pulling it, and guess what? It mushes down to the ground, and eventually the nose will fall. So if it's not corrected, it will drop below the stall speed and the plane will stop flying. But it's all or nothing. We have a slower speed for a moment. That isn't controlling our speed. To control our speed, we simply pull back on the throttle, then use the yoke to maintain our altitude. All right, to make a slower speed, I want to reiterate that because that's an important part. To make a slower speed, we pull back the power, but we also try to maintain the altitude. All right, again, that's an interesting point because once you control that, you'll really have better control of your airplane. So if you just pull back on power alone, your plane will just start descending. You've got less speed, less lift, and you're just sort of descending. We're going to learn how to do that properly. All right? But if you pull back power and adjust the yoke, you can still fly as long as you've got enough power to maintain your altitude. Now we're slower for sure. All right? So slower speeds, pull back the throttle, but still maintain the altitude. That's an important part. So in summary, to control our speed, we simply pull back on the throttle and then use the yoke to maintain our altitude so we don't drop. At 5,500 feet, when I pull back on the throttle, just a little, the nose starts to drop and I lose some altitude. So I compensate by pulling back on a little bit on the yoke. Once I have maintained 5,500, I can trim it like that. Do you notice we are flying slower, but at the same altitude? Now reduce another 100 or 200 RPMs. You can experiment with this one at a time. Correct with the yoke, maintain 5,500 feet. Now trim it. Look how easy that is. You can even hands-free trim it, and there you are at slower speeds. Be careful though, we can get so slow that we can stop flying. We know what that speed is. Also notice that the controls are mushy, meaning less airflow takes greater movements of the yoke. With more realistic flight in the next course, we have to give more power and use extra rudder to keep straight, because that more power makes the plane want to yaw. So we'll talk more about that as we get into more advanced conversations. For now, give it full power and nose down to correct 5,500 feet. All right, so now we're going to level off. Full power and nose down to give us 5,500 feet. And guess what happens? Our speed increases. All right, do you see that? So we've slowed down by using the throttle, but you have to adjust something, all right, to maintain altitude. As you speed up, you give it more power, but you have to also do something to maintain altitude. All right? So we're going to try both. Now, a practical application of this, you may have to slow down in the circuit so that you don't fly too fast into another plane. And you will definitely have to slow down when you approach to land. Oh, as a matter of fact, you have to slow down while you are descending. So descending alone will make you speed up. So we need to learn more about this. Descending alone will make you speed up faster. So we have to be able to descend and slow down. Well, interesting. See, we're going to be doing that when we get to our landing module. All right, so now it's your turn. Same procedure. First, pull back some throttle and notice the altitude drop. Then climb back up to 5,500 and start again. Only this time, don't let it drop. When you pull back power, just a bit, anticipate the drop and be ready to maintain 5,500. Try different speeds, but don't go below 55 knots for now. All right? Stalls. We learned in theory of flight that a stall is when the relative airflow isn't fast enough to sustain lift, and we fall out of the sky. We're going to do that now. Isn't this exciting? Are you crazy, Howard? We are going to do this, and we do this in flight training all the time. Well, we'll not completely fall out of the sky, but we'll learn how to recover from a stall without being anywhere near the ground. We need to practice this so we know how to recognize it and act on it for recovery. The most common place this could happen is during takeoff or landing, when our speed is low and we're close to the ground, with undesirable results. Luckily, our plane is equipped with a built-in wind instrument that warns us when a stall is about to occur. It's called the stall warning horn. That's right. On the 172, it's located on the left wing on the leading edge. If you ever played a flute, it is exactly the same. When the wind passes over it slow enough and at the right angle, it will sound, and we will hear it. Most wing designs stall at about 17 degrees, and the stall warning sounds at about 15 or 16. As we don't have an angle of attack indicator, we rely on the airspeed indicator and the symptoms of a stall. So a decrease in the effectiveness of the controls, loss of height despite pulling back on the yoke, buffeting because the airflow is not smooth anymore, these are all symptoms of a stall coming, and we got to recognize it. The stall warning sound is telling us it's about to happen. We will conduct two types of stalls, power off stalls and power on stalls. We need to know how to recover from both. Let's start with power off stalls, entry and recovery. So the objective is not how to stall a plane. The objective isn't to learn how to stall a plane, but to recognize the onset of a stall and take prompt corrective action before the stall occurs. So let's get the entry set up, and typically the instructor would do this for you, and then you have to recover. All right, so stall entry. Start from straight and level flight. Pull the throttle all the way back to idle. If you have rudder pedals, control the yaw, because you will actually yaw a little. More in the next course, of course, right? So try to hold the aircraft in level flight with the yoke by continued back pressure. By the time you hear the stall warning horn, you should have the yoke all the way back to your chest. Recovering from the stall is relatively easy. We need to increase the airflow over the wings again. As you stall, you'll lose some altitude, but usually not much. So we stay up high so we don't worry about that, right? Now we simply push the nose forward, which immediately reduces the angle of attack. At the same time, push the throttle in all the way. Apply full power, promptly and smoothly. We don't want the engine to conk out at such a crucial moment, so we don't just slap the throttle in there in desperation, especially if we're lower to the ground. We don't want that engine to conk out. So reestablish straight and level at cruise speed, and then trim it. Well, it might already be the correct trim from the very start, all right? Power on stalls, entry and recovery. Because of the additional thrust by cruise power, we need to raise the nose smoothly to a nose-up attitude and hold it there with continued aft movement of the yoke to make the stall happen. Remember, our engine can't pull us straight up anyway. It's going to stall at some point. Again, when the stall occurs, the yoke is probably all the way back toward your chest. The stall will be more abrupt because of the power on entry. We might drop drastically, but it's okay. We have lots of room below us. But we must act promptly, especially when we're nearer to the ground. We might also notice one wing drop before the other in a power on stall. Correct this with rudder if you have it, or try to keep level with the yoke. We're not covering spins in this beginner course. So, stall entry with cruise speed, cruise speed or full speed, smoothly raise the nose of the airplane. Use continued back pressure on the yoke to keep this nose-up attitude. As you approach the stall, the yoke is all the way back. You can't pull it back anymore, and the airspeed is at stall speed. As the plane stalls, you'll hear the horn. Full application of any remaining power is important. As the nose already dropped, the airflow is increasing, and you can control level flight again. Accelerate to your desired cruise speed, trim it for level flight again. As you see, the stall is very similar in power off or power on, but the increased thrust in power on is a more abrupt drop. Similar to those who are landing and finding themselves too low, so they give lots of power to try and power into the airport or scud running. While they have landing gear out and flaps out, well, they're asking for trouble. What if they stalled before they got to the runway? And it does happen. So now it's your turn. Save your flight over Claremont so that you can try it again and again. Or you can simply recover from a stall and do another one, recover from a stall and do another one. When you're ready, use FS Recorder to save the file. You can send me for homework listed later on. Lesson 2, practice and homework, right? In summary, Hazel check and level at 5,500 feet over Claremont practice area. Initiate and recover from a power off stall. Initiate and recover from a power on stall. Record one of your sessions for our calling purposes.